Welcome to my video regarding what camera gear you should bring for an Antarctic cruise. Shirley and I were fortunate to have recently completed a beautiful trip on the Viking Polaris, and I'd like to share with you what I learned during this cruise that I did not know beforehand. As a disclaimer, I am not a professional photographer or YouTuber. I am, however, a guy who likes to take photos on my vacations, and over the years I've accumulated a decent amount of camera gear. There will be no Amazon links for the gear I mentioned because I'm not trying to monetize this video. A trip to Antarctica is a once-in-a-lifetime adventure, and if I can help someone else preserve their trip memories, that is all I'm after. This is only a portion of the camera gear I brought with me to Antarctica. For about 80% of the people, this is probably all the camera gear you need. Here are some things to consider. First, what are you going to do with the photos? If all you want is to post on social media, then definitely a phone is all you need. If you want to preserve the photos on a hard drive or the cloud, ask yourself, on previous trips, how often do you go back and review your old photos? I started making photo books a few years ago, and now I have a nice book for each trip on my coffee table for visitors to easily access the pictures. If you're happy with a small book of 4x6 photos, like what you can get from Google fairly inexpensively, then a phone is fine. I like to see more detail in my pictures and have been getting 11 by 14 inch photo books, and at that level of enlargement, the camera is much better. The second issue is deciding what type of pictures you want to take. If it's just a scenery and good lighting and not moving, the phone is fine for that. For wildlife, particularly if you want to see fine detail, nothing beats a camera with a telephoto lens. Birds in flight is an interest of mine, and that isn't possible to do just with a phone. This seal was about 500 yards away when I caught a picture of him eating a piece of penguin meat. This is also impossible without a telephoto lens in a camera. I would recommend taking 2 camera bodies and 2 camera lenses. I actually wound up taking 4 different lenses, partially because my backpack had plenty of slots for extra lenses, but if I had to do it all over again, I'd only take 2 lenses. This is the arrangement I used when I went ashore. Since we only had 1 hour at each landing site, I wanted easy access to all my gear. I used a gimbal with my phone for taking video. When I was done with that, I just stuffed that into one of my large jacket pockets. I mounted my Nikon 500mm prime on my better camera body, the Nikon D850. I used that for wildlife. I used the Nikon 28-300 zoom for all the scenery shots. The zoom was nice because I could frame my shots just the way I wanted and did not have to do much cropping later. My wildlife lens was the Nikon 500mm PF prime, and I was very happy with the images from this lens. I previously had a Tamron 150-600 that I'd taken to Africa. The images were much sharper from the prime lens, and even more important, focus locked on much faster and more consistently with the prime lens. About 95% of my shots were in focus. With the 150-600 Tamron, I couldn't use about 30% of the photos because they were out of focus. I took almost all my pictures with the 500mm and the 28-300mm. I brought my wide-angle Tamron 15-30 for expansive scenery shots. However, most of the wide-angle shots I wanted were wide-angle panoramas of the beautiful surrounding mountains. I would use my 28-300 and set the zoom so I could see the right amount of sea, mountains, and sky, and then take 3 to 7 photos panning from left to right. Before and after the panorama shots, I would point the camera down at my leg and take a picture of my leg. This would make it easy in Lightroom to find the photos that were supposed to be part of a panorama. If I had to do this all over again, I would not take this lens. To be honest, I just took the Tamron 24-70 because I had an extra slot in my backpack. It's a nice lens, but didn't really use it very much. Since I was bringing a lot of camera gear, I bought a larger camera bag. I selected this Shimoda backpack because I thought that the insert would provide good protection for my two camera bodies and four lenses. Once on board the Polaris, I removed the insert and put it in a drawer and was able to neatly store everything away. I put a lot of consideration of how to carry two cameras at once and still have my hands free for hiking poles or my cell phone. I did not want to use traditional camera straps because they tend to put a lot of strain on my neck. I installed Peak Design quick clips on my backpack as I thought that would be the easiest. I also bought a Black Rapid dual harness system as a possible backup, and I'm glad I did. The main problem with the backpack is that you are required to use the supplied expedition jacket and life jacket when you're on an activity. The life jacket was so bulky you could not comfortably wear a backpack over it. The other issue was that you are not allowed to rest your backpack or any other gear on the ground on landings where we did the penguin viewing. I bought a dry bag that was offered by Viking before the cruise. I would wrap my larger camera with a towel from the stateroom and put it in the bottom of the bag. I would then lay the smaller camera on top of that. I would close the dry bag for the Zodiac ride, and once on shore I would clip my two cameras into the harness and would be good to go. Once back in the cabin, I left the cameras wrapped up in the dry bag for about an hour or so to allow them to warm up slowly. This was done to prevent condensation, especially inside the camera and lenses. I brought rain covers for my cameras and never took them out of the packages. We did have light snow at times, but it was cold enough that you were not going to have a drenching or driving rainstorm. If it is snowing very heavily, the shore excursion would be canceled anyways. I took extra batteries but didn't use them. The excursions are only about an hour at a time, and I did not take more than about 200 photos during that hour, so I never drained the battery down. Extreme cold is supposed to kill batteries, but never got below 30 degrees. I even bought a third-party grip for the extended battery life, but never used it. I'd recommend bringing at least one spare battery and a charger, but not much more than that. I brought a full-size tripod and a mini tripod. I brought the mini tripod because I read that penguin pictures are better if you can get down to their level. My plan was to mount my camera on the mini tripod and put it about 6 inches off the ground. It turns out that you are not supposed to place a tripod on the ground per the rules. Also, all of our penguin viewing was done on snowy slopes where the penguins tended to walk at or about our eye level. I did actually use the full-size tripod on the ship for a spotting scope I set up in our room. I also did some time-lapse photography with my phone mounted to the tripod. I got some nice sail-away movies, but probably not worth the effort for bringing the tripod. I tried to get a time-lapse sunset, but the sun was setting so slowly and so late, it didn't really work very well. I got a gimbal right before the trip and did use it a fair amount. The advantages of the gimbal were that my panning video was much more steady. The other advantage was the handle allowed me to take photos while in the Zodiac with a much more secure grip on the camera. I can also change from photo to video with the tip of my finger. There is a learning curve to using the gimbal, so don't buy it unless you're willing to spend at least 2 or 3 hours learning how to use it, practicing it so it becomes second nature. I brought an extra memory card for each camera and an external hard drive to back up the images. I consider both of these necessary, even though I did not have any card failures or memory loss. I did use my lens cleaning kit a couple of times, mainly to wash off the salt spray off the surface of my lenses, so I would definitely bring that. I brought some polarizing filters but never used them. Most of the time the sun was behind clouds and the lighting was never in the correct angle to make use of the polarizing filters. Thank you for watching this video.